I never thought I'd find myself here. Not like this. But I couldn't look away. Zaraya stood there, the last alien left from the auction, her fiery gaze cutting through the room like a blade. She wasn't just another alien. She was untamable, wild, and somehow, impossibly, more beautiful than anything I'd ever seen. Her emerald skin shimmered under the harsh lights, her eyes glowing like twin suns. The crowd had given up on her. No one wanted a prisoner they couldn't control. But I wasn't like them. As the final bids were called, she stood tall, proud, and defiant, her posture radiating a power I couldn't ignore. I'm not some object to be bought, she spat, her voice low but commanding. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I should have been cautious, should have walked away, but something inside me stirred, and I took a step forward. I had no interest in owning her like the others. I'm not here to buy you, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm here to set you free. Her eyes softened just for a moment, like she wasn't sure if she should believe me. But that brief hesitation told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't just a fighter. She was someone who had been betrayed, controlled, abandoned. And I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't going to make this easy. You really think you can free me? She asked, raising an eyebrow. You're a human. You're not equipped for what's coming. I didn't respond immediately. She was right. I wasn't equipped. But that didn't matter. There was something about her. Something in the way she carried herself, the way she stood, despite everything, like she was unbreakable. I stepped closer. My heart pounded harder with each step. This wasn't just about freedom. It was about something deeper, something I couldn't quite explain. Maybe it was the challenge, or maybe it was her. She hadn't run, hadn't given up. She was still standing. Maybe I'm not, I said quietly, but I'll figure it out. I'll make sure you're free. I promise. Her eyes locked with mine, and for a second, the fire inside her flickered. She studied me, a look of curiosity and disbelief dancing across her face. She took a deep breath. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I couldn't help but smile. Try me. The air between us thickened, charged with something unspoken. It wasn't just a physical attraction. It was a pull, a force I couldn't ignore. She tilted her head slightly, her lips curling into a small, knowing smile. You're brave, I'll give you that, she murmured. But in her eyes, I saw something else. Something dangerous. Something that told me this was only the beginning. As she turned away, I followed her, not knowing where this would lead, but knowing that nothing could stop me from finding out. The transport weaved through the bustling spaceport, its sleek metal hull reflecting the distant stars. Zaraya stood next to me, her presence filling the air with something heavier than gravity itself. She had yet to speak a word since we left the auction hall, but I could feel her eyes on me, watching my every move, as if trying to figure me out. You're not like the others, she finally said, breaking the silence. Her voice was low, almost too soft to hear over the hum of the engines, but there was a certain sharpness to it that sent a shiver down my spine. You think I'm different? I asked, keeping my eyes on the horizon. You don't want to control me. You actually want to set me free. Her words were a challenge, daring me to disagree. I glanced at her, trying to understand where this was going. That's right, I said, my voice steady, despite the way her gaze made me feel exposed. I don't want to control you. I just want to help you. She snorted, crossing her arms. Help me? Humans don't help aliens. You think I'll just believe that? Her skepticism was evident, but there was something behind her words, something that made me wonder if she was really just pushing me away, or if she didn't know how to accept help. I'm not like the others, I repeated, the words coming out more confidently than I felt. I've seen enough. I know what's right. And you deserve better than being sold like property. For a moment, she said nothing, her eyes narrowing slightly as if she were considering my words carefully. Then, without warning, she let out a long, exhausted breath. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. Her voice softened, but there was still an edge to it. You think you're the first person to try and help me? You think I haven't heard those words before? I nodded, understanding the weight of her past. I don't expect you to trust me, but I will prove it to you. I wasn't sure where the confidence was coming from, but I was determined to follow through. Zaraya looked at me for a long moment, her eyes filled with a mixture of distrust and curiosity. Prove it then. Her words were laced with a challenge, but there was something else, something vulnerable beneath her tough exterior. I will, I said, my voice steady. We arrived at the small quarters that had been arranged for us, a quiet corner of the station far from the crowded hustle of the main area. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and we stepped inside. The room was simple, barely furnished, but it had a window that looked out into the vast emptiness of space. Zariah moved to the window, her expression unreadable as she gazed out. I watched her for a moment before speaking again. "You don't have to hide behind that armor, you know." She turned to look at me, a faint spark of surprise in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "You're not alone here," I said, taking a cautious step closer. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Zariah seemed to consider this, her gaze shifting from me to the stars beyond. "You don't understand," she muttered. "You have no idea what it's like to be me." I took another step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. "Then tell me," I said softly. "Tell me what it's like." Her eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw the walls she'd built around herself crack ever so slightly. "You want to know what it's like?" she whispered, her voice almost breaking. "It's like being a weapon, a tool, never seen as anything more, never allowed to be anything more." The vulnerability in her voice hit me harder than I expected, and I stepped closer, not sure what to do or say. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to leave her in this world alone, not now. Not ever. The silence in the room was thick, the kind that made it feel like the whole universe was holding its breath. I watched Zariah, her back still turned to me as she gazed out the window into the endless black of space. Her posture was stiff, like she was carrying the weight of more than just her own body. I didn't say anything at first. The room was small, but the distance between us felt vast. It wasn't just physical space, it was emotional space. I could feel her walls, the ones she'd put up over years of being abandoned, used, and discarded. "You don't have to carry that anymore," I finally said, my voice soft but steady. She didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if she heard me, or if she was just processing the weight of my words. "I don't know if I can stop carrying it," she said quietly, her voice breaking the silence like a knife cutting through a heavy fog. "It's all I've known. Being nothing. Being used." The words stung, but they didn't surprise me. I knew her life hadn't been easy. Still, hearing her say it, hearing the raw pain in her voice, it was like a punch to the gut. I stepped closer, but not too close. I knew better than to invade her space too quickly. I had to let her decide when she was ready. "You're more than that, Zariah," I said, keeping my tone gentle but firm. "You're more than just what they made you out to be. You don't have to be a weapon anymore." She shook her head slightly, not in defiance, but in disbelief. "You don't get it," she muttered, her voice low. "You don't know what it's like to be a tool. A weapon. Something that's just used until it's not needed anymore." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had no idea what she'd been through. No idea what it felt like to live in her shoes. But I wasn't going to walk away, not now. "I might not know what it's like, but I know what you deserve," I said, my voice a little more urgent now. "You deserve more than this. More than being stuck in a life where you're just a pawn in someone else's game. You deserve to be free, to make your own choices." Zariah didn't say anything, but I saw her tense. Her eyes flickered to me, and for the first time since we'd met, I saw something different in them. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hatred. It was something else. Something I couldn't quite place. For the first time, I saw a crack in her armor. "You don't know what it's like to trust someone," she said softly. "To let someone in and not have them turn on you." I swallowed hard, feeling a lump form in my throat. I didn't know how to respond to that. How could I? How could I make her believe that I wasn't like the others? "Maybe I don't," I said, my voice quieter now. "But I'm not going anywhere, Zariah. I'm here for you. All you have to do is trust me." She turned to face me, her eyes meeting mine, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in them. But it was gone as quickly as it came. She was still guarded, still wary. But I wasn't going to give up on her. "Not now. Trust doesn't come easy for me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But maybe I can try." I nodded, my heart pounding. "That's all I'm asking." The tension in the room didn't ease, but there was something different now. Something had shifted. We weren't there yet, but we were getting closer. I could feel it. And maybe, just maybe, Zariah could feel it too. The next few days passed in a blur. We kept to ourselves, navigating through the station like two ghosts, existing in the same space, but separated by invisible walls. Zariah didn't speak much, but I noticed the subtle changes. She was still distant, still guarded, but there was a softness in her eyes whenever she caught me looking at her. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She was starting to trust me, even if she wouldn't admit it. One afternoon, I found her standing near a terminal, her fingers hovering over the touch screen, but not pressing anything. She looked lost, deep in thought. "Something on your mind?" I asked, stepping into the room. She didn't turn to look at me, but I could see her stiffen. "Just trying to figure things out," she said quietly. "What things?" I asked, walking closer. "Things that shouldn't even matter anymore," she replied, her voice laced with frustration. "I've been nothing but a tool my whole life. And now you want me to change. To be something I've never been. Free. I don't know how." There it was again, the doubt, the fear. I understood now. She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of herself. Afraid of letting go of the identity she had been forced into for so long. "You don't have to figure it out all at once," I said, my voice soft but firm. "I'm not asking you to change overnight. I'm asking you to take one step. Just one. And I'll be here with you, every step of the way." She finally turned to face me, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. "Why?" It was simple, but the weight of it was crushing. "Why what?" I asked, not quite understanding. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling just slightly. "Why help me? You don't even know me." I took a deep breath, letting the words come naturally. "Because I believe in you," I said, my voice steady. "I believe that you're more than just what they made you out to be. You're more than just a weapon. You're a person, and you deserve to be free. You deserve to have a choice." She stared at me for a long time, her eyes searching mine like she was looking for the truth in my words. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer this time. "What if I can't do it? What if I'm too broken? Then we'll fix it together," I said, my voice unwavering. "You're not alone, Zariah. You never will be." For the first time since we met, she looked at me with something other than suspicion. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a start. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice small but honest. "I don't know how to trust anyone." "You don't have to trust me right away," I said, taking a small step closer, but still giving her space. "But I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you." She didn't respond immediately, but her gaze softened. And for a fleeting moment, I saw the walls she'd built around herself crack just a little. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "I'll try," she whispered. It was the first real breakthrough we'd had, and I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. That was enough for me. The days that followed were filled with small victories, moments that seemed insignificant to anyone else, but meant everything to us. Zariah began to open up, bit by bit, though it wasn't easy for her. The trust one had been asking for, demanding, in a way, was something she'd never given anyone. But she was trying, and that was all I could ask for. One afternoon, I found her standing by the window again, staring out at the stars. Her eyes were soft, lost in thought, but this time there was no wall between us. "You're still thinking about it, aren't you?" I asked, my voice gentle. She didn't turn to face me, but nodded slightly, her expression unreadable. "I don't know if I can ever be free of them," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "They've left marks on me. They've shaped who I am." I could hear the pain in her words, feel the weight of her past pressing down on her shoulders. "You don't have to carry it anymore," I said, taking a step closer. "You're not who they made you, Zariah. You're who you choose to be." She turned to me then, and for the first time, I saw the smallest flicker of hope in her eyes. "I don't know how to choose anything," she admitted. "I don't know how to be anything other than what I've always been." My heart ached for her. I wanted to tell her that she didn't have to figure it out all at once, but I knew that wasn't enough. "You're not alone in this," I said, my voice firm, but soft. "I'm here, and I'll help you find your way. You don't have to do this by yourself." She looked at me for a long moment, as if searching for something. Maybe it was trust. Maybe it was the belief that I wasn't just another person who would let her down. "You really mean that?" she asked, her voice small, uncertain. I nodded. "I do." There was a pause. Then she let out a sigh, a sound heavy with everything she had carried for so long. I guess I can try." It wasn't much, but it was everything. She was trying. And that was enough for now. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a quiet routine. It wasn't anything extravagant, just the two of us, getting by, learning how to be around each other without the layers of distrust that had defined our lives. There were moments of silence. Yes, but they weren't uncomfortable. They felt like breathing, like a shared understanding that didn't need to be spoken. Zariah began to ask questions, small ones at first, about Earth, about my life. I answered them as best as I could, never pushing her to ask more than she was ready for. And in return, she started to share things with me, things I didn't expect. It wasn't much, but it was progress. One evening, as the stars began to twinkle outside the window, Zariah sat down across from me, her eyes no longer guarded, no longer distant. I don't think I've ever had anyone care about me like this, she said quietly. Not like this. Her words hung in the air between us, fragile, like they might break at any moment. But they didn't. And for the first time, I saw her, truly saw her, not as a weapon or a tool, but as Zariah, a person. You're worth caring about, I said, my voice steady. She smiled, a small, hesitant thing, but it was a smile. Maybe one day, I'll believe that, she said softly. And in that moment, I believed we were on the right path, even if we couldn't see the destination yet. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was something real, something worth fighting for. And I would fight for her, as long as she needed me to. The quiet between us felt different now. It wasn't just the absence of words. It was the space where trust had started to take root, fragile but real. Zariah had begun to smile more often, even laugh occasionally. It was small, but it was a change. A good one. One afternoon, we sat outside near the docking bay, watching the ships come and go. The sky was streaked with the last remnants of a dying sunset. Zariah was tracing patterns in the dirt with her finger, the soft hum of the station filling the background. I glanced over at her, watching the way her expression softened when she was lost in thought. What do you think about when you're quiet? I asked. She didn't look up immediately, but her hand stilled. After a moment, she sighed. I think about what comes next, she said quietly. I think about whether I can really be different. Her words were heavy, weighed down with uncertainty. You don't have to have it all figured out, I said, trying to reassure her. You're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together. She finally looked up at me, her green eyes meeting mine. There was something in them that I hadn't seen before, a glimmer of hope, maybe. Or was it fear? It was hard to tell. I'm not sure I can ever be like you, she said softly, almost to herself. You're so sure, so steady. I couldn't help but smile a little. That's because I have something I didn't have before. A reason to be steady. A reason to fight. She seemed to consider this, her gaze drifting back to the ships in the distance. I've never had a reason, she murmured. I've only ever been a weapon. A tool. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and I felt a pang of sympathy for her. I knew she hadn't had an easy life, but hearing it out loud, it hit me harder than I expected. I moved a little closer to her, not sure if it was the right thing to do, but I needed her to know she wasn't alone in this. You're not just a weapon, I said softly. You're Zariah, and that's who I want to know. Not the past. Just you. She turned her head slightly, her eyes searching mine. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, finally, she whispered, I don't know how to be that person. I don't know how to let go of what I've been. I reached out, gently touching her arm. It was a small gesture, but it meant more than words. You don't have to let go of everything at once, I said, my voice steady. It's okay to take it slow. But I'll be here, every step of the way. She looked down at my hand on her arm, her expression softening. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. It wasn't a grand moment. It wasn't a declaration of trust or love. It was simply a small shift, a quiet promise that things could be different. And that was enough for me. Thank you, she said, her voice barely audible, but the sincerity was there. I don't know what I would do without you. I smiled and gave her arm a gentle squeeze. You don't have to. You'll never have to face this alone. We sat there together for a while, the hum of the station and the distant sound of ships filling the silence between us. It wasn't perfect, but it was something real. Something that, for the first time, felt like it could last. The weeks seemed to stretch on, each day blending into the next, but with each passing moment, Zariah and I moved closer to something I had never expected. We had settled into a quiet rhythm, our lives no longer defined by the chaos that had brought us together. I could see the subtle changes in her. The walls around her, the ones she'd built to protect herself from the world, were still there, but they were thinner now. She let me in more each day. One evening, As the soft glow of the station's lights reflected off the metal walls, we sat together in the small living space we had made our own. Zariah was leaning against the wall, her arms crossed, but her eyes were soft as she watched me. "Do you ever wonder if this is real?" she asked, her voice quiet. I turned to look at her, the question hanging in the air. "What do you mean?" I asked. She hesitated before answering. "I mean this. Us. Can we really have something that's not just based on what I was before?" There was a vulnerability in her voice, a fear that she had never let anyone see until now. I understood. She had spent so long being seen only as what others wanted her to be, as something she couldn't control. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I don't see you as what you were. I see you as who you are now. And that's who I care about." She looked at me for a long moment, as if searching my face for any hint of dishonesty. But there was none. "It's hard to believe," she whispered. "Hard to believe someone could see me that way." I didn't answer immediately. I just reached out and touched her hand, offering what little comfort I could. She looked down at my hand on hers, and then back at me. For the first time in a long while, I saw something in her eyes that resembled hope. "You're not alone," I said quietly. "I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere." She took a deep breath, her shoulders easing a bit as if my words were finally sinking in. "I don't know what to do with all this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's overwhelming." I gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "You don't have to do anything. Just be here with me. We'll figure it out together." She nodded slowly, a small, almost imperceptible smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "Together," she repeated. The words seemed to settle between us, a quiet promise that, despite everything, we weren't alone. The rest of the night passed in comfortable silence, the kind that wasn't awkward, but peaceful. It felt like we had finally found a place where we could both breathe, where the past didn't define us anymore. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough for now. The next morning, we woke to the soft hum of the station's engines, the sunlight filtering through the small window. Zariah was already up, standing by the window, looking out at the stars. I joined her, standing beside her without saying a word. We didn't need to speak. The connection between us was stronger than any words could convey. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I looked at her, my heart full of something I couldn't quite name, but I knew one thing for sure. We go wherever we need to. Together. We spent days, maybe weeks, in a quiet harmony. It wasn't anything grand, nothing that would make the stars themselves stop and stare. But for us, it was everything. Zariah and I had built something small and fragile, but it was real. And that was enough. One evening, we were sitting in the mess hall, our plates half finished, the hum of the station a distant background to our conversation. Zariah, who had once been a stranger to this simple kind of peace, now seemed different, more at ease. She was still the same Zariah, strong, fierce, but there was a softness in her eyes now, a quietness that hadn't been there before. "I used to think I could never have this," she said, breaking the silence. "This peace. I used to think that maybe I wasn't made for it." Her voice was steady, but there was an undertone of something unspoken, something raw, vulnerable. I looked at her, not sure what to say at first. I hadn't realized just how much she had struggled to let herself believe that she could have more than what she'd been given. "You deserve peace," I said finally. "You deserve this, Zariah. You're not who they made you to be." She looked at me, her gaze intense. "I'm trying to believe that," she admitted. "But sometimes it's hard." I nodded. I understood. It was hard for me, too. It wasn't just her past. It was the uncertainty that came with the future. We both had so much to figure out. But that didn't change the fact that we were here now, together. And that meant something. "You don't have to do it all alone," I said, my voice steady. "You've got me, remember? I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, a small, fragile thing, but it reached her eyes. "You really mean that, don't you?" she asked, her voice almost soft, as if she were still testing the waters, still unsure whether she could believe it. "I do," I said, the words flowing out without hesitation. "I've got your back. Always." For a moment, the noise of the station seemed to fade away. It was just the two of us, in this moment, holding on to the quiet that was ours. Zariah's smile grew a little more, and for the first time, I saw it, really saw it. The walls that had been there for so long were beginning to crumble. She wasn't fully free, not yet, but she was closer. And that was enough for now. I don't know what's next, she said quietly, looking down at her hands. But I think I'm ready to find out. I didn't respond at first. There were so many things I could say, but in the end, all that mattered was that she was here, with me. We'll figure it out, I said simply. Together. She nodded, and for the first time, I saw her at peace with that idea. Maybe we weren't ready for everything the universe had in store for us, but we were ready to face it together. And that was enough for me. The days passed, each one bringing us closer to something neither of us could have imagined when we first met. We were no longer strangers to each other, no longer guarded. There was a trust between us now, something unspoken, but solid. I saw it in the way Zariah smiled more often, how she let her walls down just enough to allow me in. It wasn't easy for her, I knew that. Her past had been a constant shadow, but with each day, she was learning to leave it behind. We were sitting together in the common area, the soft glow of the station's lights casting long shadows around us. Zariah was reading something on the data pad, but I could tell her mind wasn't entirely focused on it. She had this faraway look in her eyes, the kind that told me she was thinking about something else. What are you thinking about? I asked, breaking the silence. She looked up at me, surprised by the question. For a moment, I saw hesitation in her eyes, but then she smiled, a small but genuine thing. Just thinking about how much has changed, she said softly. How different everything is now. I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The life she had once known was so far removed from the life we were building now. It's not always easy, is it? I said, my voice low. No, she admitted, her smile fading slightly. But it's worth it. I'm starting to see that. She set the data pad down, her expression thoughtful. I used to think I'd never be able to leave the past behind, that I'd always be stuck in it, never able to move forward. But now I'm starting to believe that I can. That maybe I can be more than just what they made me. Her words were quiet, almost like a confession. But they weren't just for me. They were for herself, too. I reached out, placing my hand gently over hers. You already are, I said, my voice firm but gentle. You've already started. And you're not alone in this. I'm right here, every step of the way. Zariah looked down at our hands, her fingers slightly trembling beneath mine. When she looked up again, her eyes were filled with something new, hope. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. For believing in me. For not giving up on me. I squeezed her hand, feeling a warmth spread through me. I'll never give up on you, Zariah. You don't have to do this alone. We'll figure it out, together. She smiled again, the kind of smile that reached her eyes, full of warmth and something else, something I couldn't name, but I knew it was the beginning of something beautiful. The hum of the station was a constant background noise, but in that moment, it felt like the whole universe had faded away, leaving just the two of us, standing on the edge of something new, something real, and it felt like it would last. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, we would face it together.